We're talking best destinations for the best free agents on the best 8-minute podcast out there, FFT Express. All right, it's Adam and Dave. Hello, Dave. I don't like that look.
Hello, Whisper Boy.
Yes. All right, number one free agent is?
It's T. Higgins. Has to be. Just tremendous talent, wide receiver. You asked us on the main show, is he a true number one receiver? I would argue that he is at minimum a top 30 receiver on the planet right now. And if that's the case, then that would make him a number one receiver. There are teams that are desperate for a guy like him. The Patriots certainly stand out as a team that could break the bank to get T. Higgins to come in and catch 50-50 balls from Drake May. But he's the best one. Would New England be the best landing spot for him? No. Buffalo would be really interesting, but I don't know how serious Buffalo would be about adding a receiver like that to their offense. There's a couple other teams that we can pontificate on, but I'm hoping he stays in Cincinnati. And I know that sounds a little silly because they also have Jamar Chase, but he had over 9 targets per game last year with the Bengals, had a career year, especially if it's on the franchise tag where that carrot is being dangled just a little bit more in front of him. One more year of that, I think we could buy into T. Higgins as a potential, I'll say, top 13 wide receiver in PPR.
Yeah, I also want to see Higgins stay on the Bengals for predictability and because Joe Burrow, I don't want him to be a draft day bust. And having T. Higgins is important for Joe Burrow, has been important for Joe Burrow. And I think when you're just looking at a recent draft we did just a few days ago, T. Higgins was the 15th wide receiver off the board, coming off a season where he was the 5th best on a per game basis. So you're getting a discount, and I really do expect him to be a top 15 wide receiver. I don't expect him to be a top 5 receiver, but I don't think he's getting overdrafted if he goes back to the Bengals. I think he'll be drafted appropriately, and obviously we could be wrong, and there could be some more upside there like we saw last year. So let's keep T. Higgins on the Bengals. All right, who's next?
Next up would be Chris Godwin. I think he's very solidly the second best free agent that's out there. And man, he was so good in that Liam Cohen version of the Tampa Bay offense last season, averaged 19.7 PPR points per game. Everybody kind of looks at him and says, yeah, he's a PPR cheat code. You know what? He averaged 12.5 non-PPR points as well, 8.9 targets per game. Was sensational, dislocated his ankle, and now he's a free agent. But the dislocated ankle is something that I think he can come back from and not be too far behind in terms of speed, quickness, agility, and all that stuff. He's rehabbed serious injuries before. There are all kinds of teams where it would make sense to add him as a slot receiver. Imagine him replacing Cooper Kupp in LA with the Rams. I mean, to me, that would be phenomenal. He's already played in that role. I'd love to see him go there. Of course, I'd love to see him stay in Tampa as well. And it sounds like that's a possibility because they moved the contract void date. That's something both the team and Godwin had to agree to. They did that. And so now Chris Godwin has a chance to potentially stay in Tampa Bay, and that would be awesome. I'd be happy to see that as well.
Hooray. And I'll be out on Chris Godwin most likely because I am trying to learn lessons from years past of guys who break their leg or in his case dislocated his ankle. And it does seem to have an effect on them. So that's just my concern there. But
so, talk to me on that. Does that rule him out from being a top 15 receiver for you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. What about top 20?
Yeah, I would say so. I think
top 30?
No, I think that's kind of, where Tank Dell was going last year? It's like
right around 30,
yeah,
right? Maybe a little higher.
Top 60 pick, probably somewhere between 50 and 60.
Yeah, that's where he'll end up. He could end up creeping into that top 24. I could see that for Godwin in PPR.
Yeah, we'll see where he goes. Let's take a quick break here on FFT Express and get to 3, 4, and 5 after this.
One of golf's elite courses, Quail Hollow, hosts the game's top players at the PGA Championship this May on CBS.
Number 3, Dave.
We did not talk about Sam Darnold on the main show, and he is a free agent. The Vikings, it sounds like they are much more interested in bringing him back now. Maybe they needed to wait until the season ended because he had those 2 games, one in the postseason, one in Week 18, where he was just absolutely awful. Maybe they needed to kind of get over that and realize, all right, Darnold might be the best that we've got as far as options go. And I don't know if they necessarily have to franchise tag him, but if they let him go in free agency another team will pay him to be their quarterback. I want him to stay in Minnesota. I love the situation that we've seen quarterbacks thrive in with the Vikings under Kevin O'Connell. And it hasn't just been Darnold and Kirk Cousins. Josh Dobbs literally got off a plane and became an interesting fantasy quarterback. Nick Mullins had his moments when he was pressed into action. I'm going to be interested in whoever the Vikings quarterback is in 2025, even if it's Darnold. The best part about Darnold, if he stays, he won't be drafted as a top 10 quarterback, which means he might be the headliner of the quarterbacks that you take to be, the second quarterback on your bench. And if he comes back to Minnesota, it's still Justin Jefferson. It's still Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson's going to be healthier. Kevin O'Connell is still going to call plays. It's a really good situation for Darnold that I wouldn't mind using a draft pick on toward the end of the draft.
Yeah. Honestly, though, it's the only situation for Darnold that I would consider drafting him in fantasy, only going back to the Vikings.
Would you get creative and think about the Rams as a team that,
no,
let's say,
because they're too run heavy? I thought about that. I thought about that to be successful there. But if Stafford wasn't a fantasy relevant quarterback, I don't really see how Darnold would be. I mean,
I wouldn't be as excited, but I do think Darnold would have a chance. He'd probably be closer to the bottom of that list of, low risk, high reward, late round QBs.
All right, Dave, number 4.
This is where things are going to get gross. I honestly don't even know if I got a fourth that
Aaron Jones. Make it Aaron Jones. Rico Dowdle, J.K. Dobbins.
It's probably some combination of those three to round out the top 5. So can we just do all 3 of those guys?
Sure. You want to throw
Najee in the top 6? And we got away from mentioning Najee Harris and Javonte Williams and other guys. Look, Aaron Jones was good last year. I think he can give a team one more year of effective rushing. He's going to need help. I don't think he can be a workhorse back, but he still had 15 games with at least 14 touches in Minnesota. Now, was it Minnesota that helped him put up great numbers? Yeah, probably. So I'd like to see him go back there. For some reason, you linked him to Cincinnati on our show. I would hate that for him and for Chase Brown. But I thought, what about Pittsburgh? They replaced Najee Harris with Aaron Jones for a year and Jaylen Warren. It could be great for Warren. But those two guys in a tandem, that's speed. That's something that would absolutely help out the Steelers be hopefully a little bit more efficient on the ground.
All right. I'm going to give you a bonus. This is kind of cheating, though.
Well, I mean, we didn't talk about Dobbins or Dowdle. If you want, people can hear about them on the main show. And now,
okay. Whatever you want. Like, where's the best running back landing place?
A lot of people are going to point to the Chargers. A lot of people are going to point to Dallas. I would say that those are probably the 2 best.
Okay, ready for the bonus now?
Bonus me.
Chiefs guard Trey Smith, who is arguably the best free agent. I mean, he's usually number 2 on a lot of lists. We haven't talked about offensive linemen, though. Goes to the Seattle Seahawks. That is a team I watched a lot of their tape because to diagnose Ken Walker. What's going on? Their offensive line was so bad at stretches last year. They could really use an interior offensive lineman. So Trey Smith to the Seahawks, make that run game better.
I mean, 2/3 of the league could use Trey Smith. The Chiefs could use Trey Smith. Too bad they didn't have more Trey Smiths in the Super Bowl. Maybe it would have been a little bit different for their offense through the first 3 quarters. I digress. I think Trey Smith in Seattle would be great. He's certainly somebody that would be a lot more reliable on the interior, pave lanes for Ken Walker. Sounds like the coaching staff wants to give Ken Walker another try. I like Clint Kubiak as the play caller. I think that that's an upgrade. And I think they'd be able to run a lot of that, inside, outside, wide zone running. Trey Smith can be good at that too. And he's an easy guy to kind of look at and quantify and say, okay, he will help every team's run. He could go to the Raiders and help.
Oh yeah. And passing game, by the way, he's
great everywhere.
Best pass blocker according to PFF among offensive guards, and 14th best run blocker. And there, by the way, there's some guys ahead of him who played like 3 games, so he's a top 10 guard. The Patriots have the most cap space by far.
They could go after Trey Smith.
They could go out. They go after everyone. If they get T. Higgins and Trey Smith, they would be, you know, if Drake May is any good, they could be a contender. They really could. That would be a great offseason for them.
I don't know if those two guys are going to be what would transform the Patriots into a contender.
No, Drake May would transform them, but you know, like they would be great additions around Drake May.
Sure.
And Mike Vrabel.
They need to add. They have so many needs. They're a few years away.
All right, Dave.
And usually when I say that, the team ends up being right.
You're a few years away.
Yeah. Usually when I say that they're a few years away, it means that they surprise everybody. So we'll see what they do.
All right, that's FFT Express. And that's Dave Richard, and I'm Adam Azer, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks for watching.